Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This he taken?
Hey, Kiernan.
Hello, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I mean, Ryan, I am so close to the end of Secret Boston book. It's so exciting. The guidebook the first draft is almost perfectly complete. Then, I'm sure it'll be a lot of work to do the editing and stuff, but this is very exciting for me. This has been, 2.5 years coming.
We got a message in the old Instagram a couple weeks ago from a listener who found us because of the Boston trilogy.
The Boston trilogy paying off. Who needs that Peru trilogy? We've got everything you need to know about Boston, and now I've even substantiated that out further with a full guidebook to Secret Boston.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the Secret Boston episode.
Let me say,
Kiernan in the hot seat.
I could do a whole. Yeah, that's a good idea. You should interview me. That's a great idea.
We're going to get to the bottom of Boston.
well, I'll tell you the thing that's so shocking, and I think this really substantiates out our approach to travel. I think that we both think there is something valuable, interesting, curious to see almost everywhere, and
yeah.
With Boston, I've lived here for so many years that you'd think that I had exhausted it. And with Secret Boston, you're looking for the most obscure things. I've been doing so much reading, researching, interviews for the last 2.5 years that I always think I've kind of gotten to the last thing I could feature. And just in the last couple weeks, I found a couple more. It's amazing to me. The more you dig, the more riches there are.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's a big place. Yeah.
Well, and of course, very historic. There's a lot of historic things, and that's the beauty of this kind of book is you look for stories that are hidden in plain sight, corners and alleys that you've walked by 1,000 times without knowing the secret, special little something that was in there. And so that's been the joy of writing the book. So for that reason, I'm doing quite well, and I'm also doing well, Ryan, because I love the topic that we're tackling today. Sometimes we do these really self-serious episodes. Sometimes we do thoughtful, philosophic episodes. Sometimes we do information-packed episodes. This is more of the hangout version. We're going to talk about airplane movies and a broader entertainment while you're
watching movies. Watching movies on airplanes, not airplane movies. We're not going to talk about snakes on a plane.
No. Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
You gotta maximize that SEO. That's search engine optimization, folks, if you're not in the biz. So we're gonna tackle our different approaches to airplane movies, Ryan. I think you and I each have some unique takes on it, and certainly would love to hear some feedback too. Once we see if people agree with our approaches.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to unpack this. It'll be an interesting topic, but we do have a little bit of housekeeping.
Absolutely, so much housekeeping. I'm shocked by how many people are reaching out these days.
We get a lot of housekeeping. First off, we got to thank our listeners because August was our second biggest downloaded month ever. So always great to get
really reaching for a milestone there, right? Second biggest. Who cares? Nobody cares.
Yeah, well, nobody cares, but I care. I love looking at the downloads.
Yeah, you're a real data nerd. Yep, that's right.
And one of the reasons we're doing so well is because folks are writing us these great reviews. So I want to thank Podcast Traveler, who wrote in, gave us 5 stars and said that we are a good and funny podcast, which I agree with. I think we are good and funny.
Yeah, I would say good and plenty and funny. Good and plenty and funny, because there's plenty of episodes. This is what, 159, I think?
Yeah, 160.
Whew, 160. Oh, it's a 10. We should be celebrating that.
Yeah, I know. And then we've got Andy Big Randy Andres, who wrote a lovely note about how much he enjoys The Last Stop, which we always call the people segment. I think it's the listener segment,
It's the people segment. Exactly. It's popularly known as the people segment. It was from the very first episode. I think. Exactly. I think we said that in the first episode before the people were even listening.
Yeah, there were no people.
Well, the people at that time were you and me, and it was our favorite segment.
And our mothers. Our mothers have always been
My mom doesn't
listeners.
know how to download podcasts. She will often say to me like, oh, somebody mentioned to me you said this on your podcast. Can you show me how to download it? Then I do. And then she doesn't listen. But
so she doesn't listen?
That's fine.
You should
Every
text
time
her
I'm
the
there, I
links or
download
something.
a bunch of episodes. Not for her to listen to, just so we get those metrics.
That's good. That's good. Also, we got Kevin Collins, friend of the pod, reached out and said, Kiernan, when are you going to do that episode on traveling as a parent that you've been promising us?
Yeah, well, part of it is that I didn't want to, we try to be authoritative when we have an episode. And I've done a lot of car trips with my kids, but I've only done a single plane trip with the two of them. And so I think I got to go through like 2 more plane trips before I can really rip that Band-Aid off. And we got some coming up in the next few months. So I think I will be able to, maybe like early in the new year, I think would be the right time to hit a parenting. And that will be good timing because people will be looking forward to their late spring, their summer plans. And that'll be a good time because destination is a major consideration when you're traveling with a child.
Yeah. And I'm going to have almost nothing to add to this except,
it's like most episodes. But Ryan, I do want to just, to use a horrible phrase, double click on something you said, which is thanking people for the reviews. Because, I've recently been listening to a new podcast where the way they say it is they always say, if we don't add listeners, we're going to wilt and die as a podcast. So if you like us, you actually should have an incentive to give us a good review or tell some friends and family to keep us going. And as you've heard, Ryan is so obsessed with those metrics. I'm not sure he's going to keep coming back.
It is definitely inspiring to know that we're still growing after all these years, 160 episodes in.
I was trying to think how many years. Are we coming up to 5 years in October?
It's like 5 years.
Yeah, I think 5 years in October. That's amazing. We'll celebrate that then.
Yeah, let's get there first.
Sure. And Ryan, final one. This probably fits as a recalculating, honestly, because it's a follow-up to a great interview you do. So let's throw in a recalculating.
Recalculating.
And recalculating, of course, is where we do follow-ups or corrections from previously covered topics. Here it is previous guest Brittany Mendez, who talked to us about the most popular attraction by state. She shared with us the fall foliage map, which is it's like a prediction map as we head into the autumn.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's a map of the United States, and there's a little slider at the bottom, and you can adjust different dates, and you can basically see when the peak activity is, when it's going to be the most beautiful in those areas. So if you're planning a road trip this fall, we've got the link in the show notes. Check out the map. It's fun.
And it also means, of course, when hotel prices will jump, because that's the hardest thing about foliage and leaf peeping. That's right. It's good to be in Boston. You do a lot of day trips to a lot of great foliage.
Yeah, same in New York. We've got some great trees.
It's okay in New York. I don't know.
Oh,
I guess the Hudson Valley.
I have gotten multiple requests lately, by the way, for the lack of Hudson Valley content. People are shocked.
Wait, really? I feel like that was like the whole pandemic. It's just
I know.
I don't know. Didn't we do like 3 episodes on that octagon house that I follow on Instagram for some reason now?
I love that house. That's a great
cool.
house.
It's very cool. And actually, do you know that relates in Secret Boston? There's a fully round house in Boston that was inspired by those octagon houses.
Oh, well, when I'm in town next week.
You got to buy the book. We got to buy the book, folks.
When I'm in town next week, we gotta
we'll go by the
you gotta
round
take me
house.
somewhere very quirky.
That's right. Ryan's coming to Boston, so that's exciting. I got to make us a dinner reservation, don't I?
You do. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Ryan, if you are flying, I desperately want to know what you're going to be watching on board. So I think it's time for us to take off.
Tell the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
Well, Ryan, fitting enough, we've taken off. The pilots finally stopped announcing things to us, which means they've turned on the in-flight entertainment, which means we get to choose what movies we want to be watching while we're settled in our seat. So
have you noticed how astonishingly long the whole beginning presentation of a flight has gotten?
Oh, it takes so long.
It used to just be they came out and they showed you how to buckle up, and they were like, here's the exits, and that was it.
I actually remember, Ryan, on our original list of 100 ideas for episodes that we could do, the safety video that different airlines use. was going to be something that we discuss. I think for like kind of a hangouty sort of episode. I would love to go back to that because there are some. It is Air France. I remember used to have a absolutely killer in-flight, very funny entertainment, and the folks weren't bad to look at either, in keeping with the French.
Well, nowadays you've got this. There's so many commercials that you have to get through just to get to
but that's like going
access.
to the movies.
It's true. That's true.
So Ryan, when you're considering going into the sky, I mean, first off, let's just start with the most basic. Do you watch movies on an airplane? If not, this is going to be a very short episode.
I watch movies on basically any flight over, I'd say 3.5, 4 hours.
Really? So if you have a 2.5 hour, you're not committing. You're just going to read.
I'm just going to read. I'm going to listen to a book or something. Yeah, I'm not going to. I need because between takeoff and landing and everything, like it's just those are like the worst times to watch the movie. The best time to watch the movie is when you've got like a lot of time before something's going to happen. Now,
why are you listening to a book? Why aren't you reading a book?
I read a book too, but I like sometimes audiobooks are good for travel because there's a lot of just standing in line and a lot walking around. So I
just don't know where to look when I'm on a plane, and half the time I get very lulled to sleep by the plane. So if I'm gonna do a book, it's gonna be reading a book. Yeah. If I'm listening to a book, I'm just looking around, looking at the screen, and then I'm gonna touch something on the screen, get distracted, lose touch with the book. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, well, that's what's really hard about listening to a book.
It's very hard. It's very arduous. So now I will say I have skepticism about watching a movie if it's under 2-hour flight, because if there's turbulence or if they decide to turn off the entertainment, there's like nothing I dread more than the idea of not being able to finish a movie. And most movies are capping out at 2 hours these days.
Yeah. And in fact, the movie that I've seen the most on a plane, which is this movie called Yesterday, which is about what would have happened if the Beatles never existed, but this one guy remembered the Beatles.
Oh yeah, and then he like kind of pawns these off as his creation, right?
Right, because nobody remembers the Beatles because they didn't exist, and because he fell on his bike or something. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But I watched the movie, and then the pilot did that thing where they were like, they shut down the entertainment before it landed, and I didn't get to see the end. So then I came back and I had to watch the whole thing over again on a different flight. But it's a great.
Wait, you couldn't fast forward?
Well, no, I just when you're on a flight, you kind of like it's kind of
you're
like
in the zone,
settle in. Yeah, you're in the zone. Yeah.
So you watched most of it twice?
Yes.
Gosh, you must really like that movie. Do you recommend it?
I think it's really funny. I like it on a plane. It's not a movie I would ever sit in my house and watch or go to the movie theater to watch, but in a confined space. Like, if and we were talking about the scarcity of entertainment on a plane is something that is different than when you are at home with Netflix or HBO, right?
I guess, but like, think of how spoiled we are. Like, for those who are flying in like the 70s, that was like a true scarcity of entertainment on a long flight. I mean, truthfully, we're blessed to have these little screens that have tons in them regardless. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, you don't have the internet, which is the thing we're all trained to need, that we can watch anything at any time.
Yeah. There's no like the in-flight movie today will be Jaws.
Now, you said you identified two attributes that it seems like maybe you're zoning in on the sort of film that you look for, which is, you said it's recent and you wouldn't go to the theater to see it. Now, was Yesterday one of those movies?
Yeah, Yesterday when I watched it, it had just recently completed its theatrical run.
It's very interesting because you go to the theater a lot.
I do, but I go to the theater and see like really artsy stuff. So when I'm on the plane, that's the time that I'm like, I've never seen Spider-Man 3 or like. Oh,
interesting you say Spider-Man 3, because for me, there are certain genres of movie that I reserve exclusively for airplanes. And one of them is exactly that, superhero movies, primarily the Marvel movies. And it's because I'm like, I'm interested. I enjoy those movies. I enjoy action packed, silly, kind of funny entertainment, bigger than life movies. But I never get to the theater, even less now because of having children. And superhero movies, you don't have to follow every single plot point. They make great plane movies just to pass the time. And very culturally relevant, because I do feel like I throughout all COVID, I wasn't on planes. I felt like I lost track of so many of these superhero movies that I only watch on planes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fly enough to have seen all the Marvel movies. Because there are so many.
I mean, I think that they're like capping out near 40 these days, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. And you and I think the one that always brings it home to me is I remember I watched probably the one that I was least likely to ever watch, which was Doctor Strange. I watched that on a plane, which is the Benedict Cumberbatch movie, and they're not very good, but I was on a plane. I'm not a fan of that guy.
Really? Oh, I liked the Sherlock series.
I know you did. I know.
You didn't like the Sherlock series?
I don't love it. It's fine. I think it's fine. I think Sherlock Holmes is a little, anyway.
I'm sorry. What do you think he is? Brilliant, a magnificent entertainment creation.
He's a wonderful man. Absolutely. So we had
Can I just say one more thing about superhero movies?
Sure.
The other great thing about it is exactly what you point out, which is the copious nature of them. Almost every flight you were on will have a DC or a Marvel superhero movie. And they come out so frequently that very often you can see one that you've not seen before. Because like you were saying, when you go on several flights, you're always risking that you're just going to get the same catalog brought back to you. But with superhero movies, very unlikely.
I sometimes fly a different provider, a different airline, just for the different in flight. I'm like, I know what Delta's
the safety
got.
video. Can I get this on Air France, please? I need to see those 2 minutes of attractive French people.
I'm so tired of Delta trying to make me watch old episodes of House. I gotta fly on a.
I feel like United. Now because I've brought it up, I'm gonna post that Air France video into the show notes on this one. And by the way, I hope we said before, but if not, that fall foliage map also going to be in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely in the show notes. So, Kiernan, are you the kind of person who downloads like movies and curates their airline experience like that?
It's interesting because I as the great organizer on the show, I do like to have some backups just in case. I'll often have like a Disney Plus download of a Star Wars, long. I'm an obsessive fan, so I could watch it endlessly. But I actually really like the roll the dice, what's going to be on this plane aspect of it, because it kind of forces me to watch stuff that I would never watch before and that I certainly wouldn't think to download. So I have like a safety, but I rarely deploy it. And in the age of me having children, it's really not even an option because they have all my devices. We've loaded them with all these horrible children's shows, the things called like Blippi and Stinky and Dirty. These are actual shows. And these are what's melting my children's mind just to make sure that they're calm and I can keep shoving M&Ms into their mouths.
This is the kind of parenting advice folks can expect on the traveling podcast.
I think our friend Kevin Collins is really going to be super interested in that sort of tip. But it is true. I mean, you don't have endless iPads. And if you've got two children, they're getting the iPads. And so, I actually don't download all that often. I'll always have a book. Usually I have a New Yorker with me. So if the movies aren't going to grab me, that's what I'll go for. The other thing, I have a tactic that I'm going to recommend to people. Now, this goes outside of movies on an airplane, Ryan, but I've noticed there are certain series that most TV series that most airlines have obviously contracted with the big studio to have on. And the one that it has sustained me on, hundreds of hours of flights for a decade is the show New Girl, which is that Zooey Deschanel Friends ripoff show, which is just good enough that there's a couple jokes that make me laugh in it. And, I like her well enough. And so I exclusively, I've never watched an episode of New Girl not on a plane, but I've probably seen 98% of the episodes, all completely out of order. I don't follow any storyline that goes across episodes, and I can only tell based on like the relative amount of makeup that the characters are wearing as they age, where in the timeline it is. But I've watched New Girl, and it's on like every flight, so I really recommend that one if planes are still carrying it.
I barely, until you mentioned this to me, I didn't even know this show existed.
Here's what's good about
how
it, though.
outside of my world it is.
But it's a solution to this fear that the pilot is going to cut out the entertainment, because these things,
true.
First of all, they're worthless. But secondly, they're only like 23 minutes. So the likelihood you're not going to finish an episode is low. And if you don't, it's fine. Like you're going to see it in another flight.
Wouldn't it be cool if like an airline curated like quality short films, had like a short film selection?
Yeah, I like that idea. Sure, almost like a short film festival exclusively for an airline. See, this is the sort of stuff, Ryan, when we were in an agency, we would have pitched that to American Airlines. They, paid us tens of dollars for an idea like that.
So you and I both are not really downloading stuff. We're watching what is the plane is offering. I
have another genre I'd recommend, Ryan, which is, this is for the longer flights. This is for like you're going across the U.S. or especially if you're going internationally. I like a big, giant, historic epic. I want a Lincoln. I want a Gladiator. Something that, if I was watching it in the theater, I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but I kind of feel like Oppenheimer would fit in this for me. Is that like something that's going to really suck up a bulk of the time? And it's a movie I know I'm going to really like, but in the day to day, I'm never going to sit down and actually watch it.
Yeah, I feel like I see those movies, unfortunately, like in theaters.
We might have even seen Lincoln together, Ryan. I'm trying to think if we did.
Yeah, I think we might have.
Seems like the sort of thing we'd see together. Yeah, there certainly are ones that I think are going to if my children were older, I definitely would have gone to Oppenheimer in the theater, but I feel like I'm saving that one for a plane. I
think I'd like to catch up on whatever the latest good animated movie is that I probably didn't see.
Pixar,
Pixar is perfect for flight.
Do you ever cry? I know that's kind of a generic question, but I am curious. Like I get emotional at movies. I do tear up, but I find on a plane it's not too big of a problem.
I feel like I don't cry. I mean, I definitely Coco. I cried like a baby.
Sure. Well, Coco was very
devastating.
Yeah,
but,
devastating.
I don't think I've cried on a plane and watching a movie.
I think it's something about the scale of the tiny screen.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, well, these aren't real people. They're in this tiny little screen. It would be like crying at an iPhone movie. Like, that's not going to happen. An iPad and a laptop is like just big enough to tip up that they feel like real people instead of like action figures.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And Ryan, do you TV wise? I know I kind of brought us into that realm. Do you ever venture into the TV side of the catalog?
No, I'm just usually disappointed with the selection. Like, I don't want to watch anything from season 3 of How I Met Your Mother. Like, and it's unless they have like some kind of like.
I don't know, that particular example feels to me like right in line with the New Girl recommendation.
No, it is.
I might add that one into my list. That's good.
You do you. I think that's great. I wish that they would always just give you this, the pilot in the first. I would start a series on a plane.
Yeah,
but they're always like random middle things. They should always
have the first season.
Yeah.
Now here's another question: is your approach to the film catalog? I have a very specific approach, which is first thing when I'm even considering that I have time to watch a movie and interest, I do a full look through the entire catalog. I notice others. They go, I do alphabetically. They get to like D and they see a movie they think they want to watch. They click it and they start it. I would never do that. I do 2 run-throughs of the full alphabet.
I do all the new releases and then I do the full alphabet before I make my decision.
Now,
I start with the new releases. I start with like the fire,
Here's a little bit of a wrinkle. On an international flight where they're offering international films with English subtitles, will you look at that full catalog?
Yeah, of course.
See, I won't because I don't know anything about those movies. So it's a complete shot in the dark. I don't follow international film well enough.
Yeah, but if it was like past lives or something that's broken through, that would be something.
I guess I have to think if it's that, maybe it's being featured on the English menu as well.
Yeah, that's probably true.
It's tough. These are tough, especially when you get into Asian airlines where like you can't if it's not going to be dubbed and it's not going to be English subtitles, you stand no chance.
Avianca has like all sorts of fun like Colombian soap operas.
Oh, do you indulge?
No, I don't indulge. I don't. But
now this brings us in, because I've pushed this into TV. I feel like I have to push this into. Do you engage with any of the other features that are available on the screens? You clearly engage in the movies. TV does not grab you. I personally look through both those catalogs fully and decide. I do not ever venture into games.
So there's music and there's audio.
Music. I need something to look at. It just doesn't do it for me. If I have music on my phone.
Yeah, I have infinite music on my phone. That is true. So I don't really play the games, but there was a while where Delta had like a pretty good Tetris. And I would play that, and I know that I would play it, and it would annoy the person in front of me sometimes.
Because you're poking so hard.
I'm poking so hard.
Turn.
I'm like, no.
The Tetris is that movie that just came out about Tetris. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I haven't seen
that
it.
would be an ideal plane movie for me.
I would definitely watch that on a plane.
In fact, I'm going to write that down right now. I do register in my head when I think something looks like a good movie to save for a plane.
Yeah, I'll save that for a plane.
Tetris is an ideal one. That could even be a pre-downloaded one now that I think about it. That's pretty good. Because Tetris, it's about the history of Tetris and how it was kind of like Russian propaganda or something is the story. And it's like a true historic story.
This plays into my last stop too. So that's good.
Oh, fantastic. So game-wise, I don't venture into the games. My wife, Catherine, she will engage deeply in the trivia games. And I believe sometimes those games are even you're competing against another passenger.
Yes,
she will do it for a long time, and I really love it. Like for me, it's like a game show, and I try to spot who the other passenger is that she's like playing.
Oh, against. I love the trivia game, and I have played versions of that for hours and just decimated my seatmates.
Well, and this piece actually leads to my final question for you, Ryan, which is, and I don't know if you have any questions for me, but actually I have two now that I think about it. The first is, do you get any embarrassment? Will you not watch something because you're afraid of other people judging you for watching it?
No, I mean, I'll watch like a silly rom-com that I would never watch in my real life. And
how about copious amounts of sex or nudity?
Well, they don't really have that they edit that out of the plane.
There's some sexy pictures that have been I've observed others watching and judged them.
Really? Well,
of course, I'm a good Catholic. You think I'm not going to scowl at them?
Yeah,
they should be watching mass on that screen. I like to download masses. I download the most recent liturgical season, and then sometimes I go back a year earlier to get ready for the masses that are coming up.
Yeah.
So now I will avoid sort of sexy movies, but also sometimes there are animated movies that I want to watch, but I'm like embarrassed as an adult to be watching them, because I actually really like Disney princess movies, for example. But the truth is, like, I don't think that I can put on Frozen and have somebody still respect me. But I like Frozen.
I mean, I would judge like a single man watching Frozen.
I mean, I literally made my wife go to the movie theater with me to see Moana when it came out. Lin-Manuel Miranda's doing the music. You got to go see that for our big Broadway fans.
Did you see the new Little Mermaid?
I did not see. I don't like the live action Disney movies.
Oh,
the only one of those I've seen was Cinderella. It was okay.
Yeah.
But I just don't like those. In fact, I don't think I'd even watch those on a plane, even though I like all the original animated ones, and I'm a big Disney fan.
But they do kind of feel like plane movies.
I would say for a certain type of Disney fan, that's probably an ideal plane movie. And maybe with the right actors, it could even be one for me. I'm not sure. Like if there was one actor I loved, like a Benedict Cumberbatch, for example. I know you're a big fan, right?
I have a question for you.
The last question I have for you was, if you're not watching something on the screen, if you're like reading a book or you're just listening to a book or a podcast, do you put anything on the screen?
Oh, I turn that thing off.
Not me. I put the flight map on. I love the flight map.
Near the end of the flight, when I'm getting antsy to be there, and I do pull up the flight map.
I like the flight maps that are close in on the map, so I can see all the towns, especially internationally, that I've like never heard of, and they're putting a dot on the map like it means anything to me. I love that, and I also I will never fail. No matter how many flights I take, I get such a big kick out of the fact that over the map the plane is enormous. It's so stupid, but I really, really love that. All right, now you said you had a question for me.
It's not to scale, Kiernan.
No, it's not to scale. That's what I find so fun.
Yeah. Okay. Do you bring your own headphones?
Oh, of course. And I bring backup headphones. And this is, so I keep obviously like a packing list in my Google Docs that I go through before I'm going on a trip to be sure I've remembered all my chargers, et cetera, external batteries, and headphones that can plug in, like old school headphones, non-iPhone headphones and non-AirPods are absolutely on that list.
Yeah, same here, because those ones they give out for free, sometimes they don't even get loud enough to like drown out the plane noise.
No, and they're like, first of all, you don't know how many people have worn those before.
They're really uncomfortable.
They've got the big fuzzy things on your ears, and I feel like germs must really love it in there. So yeah,
bring your own headphones.
Yeah, bring your own earphones. That is a great, very practical tip.
Well, I think we're at the point in the flight where we've just finished the movie and we're about to...
are we turning off? We're turning off the entertainment. But I will say, would love to hear if other people have other philosophies or types of movies that they like to clue in on only on airplanes. That's the key, is it's only on an airplane. What is your approach? So you can let us know. We'll bring it on to a future episode as a recalculating tip for others. You can email us outofofficepod@gmail.com, or you can slip into those DMs on Instagram @OOO podcast, like out of office OOO, or like podcast.
Yeah, do check out the Instagram. There's a lot of good content from recent episodes on there that folks, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what Ryan was talking about.
And Ryan, with that, I think it's time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
Now, Ryan, this is the final segment of the show. That's why it's called The Last Stop. It's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. As proven by people reaching out to us, it's popularly known as the People segment. It's because it's where, we're not trying to tackle a whole topic we're going to talk about for 40 minutes. Nothing as weighty as what movies you should watch on airplanes appear here in The Last Stop. No. This is a moment where it's a quieter moment, a moment of community, a moment of communion, where you and I each bring one thing that we want to share together. But it does have to fit one important criterion. It must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workaday week. So, Ryan, I'm going to ask you, as I ask you with great frequency on every episode, did you bring a last stop this week?
I did, Kiernan. I'm in New York City right now, so I'm playing, home tourist, and my friend Adam and I went to a unique museum on the Upper West Side last week that you have also been to, apparently.
I have been. You talk about it, and then I'm going to tell you how I'm curious how you knew it existed. I'll tell you how I did.
So this is the Nicholas Roerich Museum.
And Roerich is Roerich. And now everyone's asking, who the heck is Nicholas Roerich?
Well, that is really the question, right? Because
why does he have a museum?
Why? And that another really practical question. So Nicholas is this Russian born artist, spiritualist, cult leader, all sorts of things.
Definitely get the creepiness in there, because it's
diplomat.
Important.
He's a diplomat. He is a really interesting guy. He's like half charlatan, half for real. And then the thing about the art, Kiernan.
Yep. You got to tell the thing about the art. The spiritualist piece is important for this context.
Yes, I mean the thing about the art is it's all over the map. You know, like there's I kind of okay with like the Russian naturalist stuff, like. But then when he does, like he travels around Asia, and while he's traveling around Asia, he's trying to build some sort of pan-Buddhist empire, apparently. Yeah. Which is another weird thing he did. But his work, it's just very strange. It's very strange.
It's sort of in this New York townhouse, if I recall correctly.
It's in an old
is it on the
townhouse.
Upper West Side?
Upper West Side. Yeah. And it's been there since it's been this museum for since 1940s or something. For
set up by these cultists. Is Nicholas still alive? He's not still alive.
No, Nicholas is dead. Yeah, so it is to the best of my ability to research it, run by these folks who are definitely like true believers in this guy. And it's been funded by these rich New York City socialites who left their trust, funded this place, because it's not a cheap thing to run a museum on the Upper West Side entirely dedicated to one man.
No, I mean, it must have an extremely, I mean, maybe they own it outright, but even for the taxes on something like that, like they've got to have quite a treasury.
Yeah. This is not a cheap operation.
And I assume you were saying that it relates to Tetris because there's some, it must be weird to visit at this moment because it's overwhelmingly Russian.
It's super Russian. It's super Russian. Nicholas himself obviously not involved in the Ukraine invasion, and was a super peace is one of his big.
He's dead. So
yes, I know.
It'd be hard. I mean, maybe he's haunting. He was a peace guy. He was very into peace. That's true. He liked
one of
peace.
His many things. But yes, it is run by Russians, and I always assumed it was it would be a kind of more of a Russian nationalist kind of vibe inside of the building, but it's not. It's much more. It's like a lot of the kind of Buddhist and spiritual stuff, and it is more. It's more that than Russian. And they had Ukrainian flags kind of scattered about to let you know.
Oh, really? Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's good to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've visited New York 100 times and you feel like you've seen everything, if you haven't been to this museum, this is exactly the sort of place you want to go. And Ryan, this actually gets to how I even knew about it. This is in the Secret New York book. When I lived in New York, I used to go every weekend. I would try to find a few things to do in the Secret New York book, the obscure of the obscure. And this museum was in it. So I probably went there probably 10 years ago.
No, that's so funny. Yeah, I found it in a similar way, a list of just random museums. And I keep an ongoing to-do list of places I want to go. And it's been on my list forever. So I knew my friend Adam's into quirky, weird things. So I'm like, you want to go to this incredibly weird place with me?
That's super cool.
Yeah.
You should try to get the curator on for an interview.
I don't know. I mean, it was funny reading about the Nicholas. And one thing I'll say about him before we get to your last stop, because we kind of made fun of him a bit because he's a strange character, but he was taken largely seriously in his life, for some stuff, and then for other stuff he was not taken seriously. But he is behind the international cooperation that led to the UNESCO project.
Wow. Now that I didn't realize. I didn't remember that. That's fascinating.
There is an act named after him signed by the US that is all about preserving art and culture in areas being super important. So that's a good legacy of his. So, maybe definitely better legacy than the art. Kiernan, did you bring a last stop?
I did, and it sounds like you're being a little smart. You don't like the art. You didn't outright say that. It's weird. It's weird art.
Yeah, it's like folk art. It's fine.
Yeah. So Ryan, this actually there is. I feel like the obscure can be kind of the theme of today's last stop because, as I was saying in super researching this guidebook, for Boston, I can't, it's, it's bizarre where like you're clicking and Googling can take you. And I found this website that's like a super janky, very old looking website that like was probably just somebody's personal passion project. I'm like, not, they sell an ad on the bottom of it. So they probably somebody's making a little money, but it's like a bad website. But it has accurate information, and it's called FactoryToursUSA.com. FactoryToursUSA.com. We will put it in the show notes. And this is where I found something that's going to make it into the book, I believe. And it is exclusively factories all around the United States that offer tours. And I love factory tours. I've talked before on a Detroit episode about the Ford Rouge factory tour. And you can search by state, and you can find different companies that open themselves for tours. And you can be surprised by like small operations, huge operations that take the time to give an hour that the public can come in. And I've been on one of these tours, and then just this past week I went on another, and that's going to be in the book. They're both going to be in the book. One is the Taza Chocolate Tour, which is a small chocolate company based in Somerville, Massachusetts. It's like you go in kind of thinking it's going to be Willy Wonka, but you realize the scale is like so tiny of this operation. And what they pride themselves on are true Mexican style chocolate making. The founder actually went to Mexico. He learned how to carve these grinding stones so that the cacao beans are crushed in exactly the sort of way you get a gritty texture in the chocolate bar. It's very unique. I love it. Catherine and I loved this chocolate before we even knew it was local. And it's super fascinating. It's preserving this way of making chocolate bars that is disappearing. So it's really fascinating. Taza Chocolate Tour. You'd love it, Ryan.
Well, you know that I'm a cacao fiend. I drink cacao like every day.
Absolutely. You're a real cacao cow.
This website is awesome, by the way. This factory tours this website is awesome.
It's awesome. Like for those again, like this website's gonna become one of my stops if I'm going somewhere and I need something to do. This will be so fun. These factory tours are so cool because you get such passionate people. The other one that I did, I had no idea this existed. I've been researching this book for freaking 2.5 years. I never came up. The National Braille Press, which is one of the few outfits in the United States that prints Braille books.
Wow, is
right here
cool.
In Boston. And, many of these things are so obscure. You got to email them. You got to have a little back and forth. You got to set date and time. They don't do it every week. They might not even do it every month. Sometimes they only do it once a year. And the National Braille Press, with 2 weeks notice, will set up a tour and they'll take you through. You can see how and learn how they create the templates for Braille, the special sort of printers and paper that is required, how Braille books, one thing I had never thought about was like the volume, a book that has a ton of words in it. It's like 10 times larger when it's printed in Braille because the dots have to be separated so far on each page that you can't get as many words on a page. And so it's just volumes and volumes. They said they did the Harry Potters, and they said specifically the third one was 7 different volumes that they had to print because
I can only imagine how long the Harry Potters are in Braille. That's wild.
It was very moving, and it's a nonprofit. I got to see some of the visually impaired workers there who they are there because they can check that the pages are accurate and in order as they assemble the books, and they actually hand assemble the books and they stitch them shut. I mean, these are like artisanally made books. And I said, I guess I just assumed that there was some, Doubleday Penguin for Braille books, but it's not so. It is this craft industry. And National Braille Press is one of the few places that does it. And that obviously for blind people, they're one of the most important resources that are out there. So I recommend the tour, and I recommend giving money to them because the National Braille Press, it was extremely inspiring.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And I never would have known about it without this Factory Tours USA. Again, just kind of a crazy, odd little corner site. So that's it. Now, Ryan, now that we're wrapping up the last step, I got to ask you, what are we talking about on the next episode?
On the next episode, Kiernan, which we are recording in person, it'll be our second in-person episode. We're going to talk about Chicago.
Chicago. We've both spent quite a bit of time in Chicago, both for work and fun. And this is going to be kind of in that your first trip to series that we've been doing, because folks have been writing in and saying, often we jump so far into the obscure that it's useful to have the 101 version. So we're going to talk about our favorite things to do in Chicago, and maybe we'll even sprinkle in one or two obscure things because we can't help ourselves.
Yeah, we can't help ourselves. So now I'm going to go to Chicago and take all these factory tours.
Absolutely.
Well, until then, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken. Can I tell you about a factory tour that I wish existed?
What?
In Boston, the Gillette company's right here, and they don't do a razor tour, even though I know that they have an amazing museum style wall in there about the history of the razor, but they don't let the public in. I've even written to say, I want to feature in this book. They said no.